Individual and market supply.
Suppose we're considering the market for cupcakes, and there's two cupcake bakers in town, Aranza and Nina. Here we see the individual supply schedules for both bakers, how much each supplier was willing and able to supply at a given price. To create the market supply schedule, we're simply going to add these two individual supply schedules together. So at $12, we see 29 total dozen cupcakes are being made, 16 from Aranza, 13 from Nina. At $11, we're going to see 15 by Aranza and 12 from Nina for a total of 27. And we're going to see that we simply have to add horizontally 14 plus 11 to get 25 at $10, and so on down the line. A market supply schedule is created by adding the quantity supplied by each individual supplier at any given price. Now we can also see this graphically by looking at the market supply curve, which is created from each individual supply curve. And here are the individual supply curves for Aranza and Nina. Now, to create the market supply curve, we're simply going to add up the quantity supplied at each price, and that's shown on the supply curve. So at $12, we see Aranza making 16 dozen cupcakes, Nina making 13 dozen cupcakes, for a total of 29 dozen cupcakes. At $10, we see Aranza making 14, Nina making 11, so the total is 25. To create the market supply curve, you want to take the horizontal sum of each of the individual supply curves. So to recap, we've been able to take the data from an individual supply schedules and make a market supply schedule, and take the data from the individual supply curves and create the market supply curve by simply adding up the quantity supplied at each individual supplier is willing to supply at every particular price.
Same with how we derive the market demand. We can add up all the individual supply curves and get the market supply. Suppose in our market, there are only two producers, John and Tom. These are their supply schedules for cakes. Add up the cakes at every price, and this is our market supply schedule. How do these tables look like in graphs? Let's graph John's supply curve first. At $2, John supplies 10 cakes. At $4, 20 cakes. At $6, 30 cakes. Well, John's supply curve. And this is Tom's supply curve. Let's do a horizontal summation. At $2, the total cakes supplied is 10 plus 20 equals to 30. At $4, it's 20 plus 30 equals to 50. At $6, it's 30 plus 40 equals to 70. So there you go, the market supply curve. Since the market supply is made up of individual supply curves, when individual supply curve shifts, the market supply curve shifts. Suppose technology improves. Both John and Tom increase their supply of cakes. The supply curves shift right. the market supply shifts right too.
In supply schedule, we have the different possible prices at which the suppliers are willing to supply the commodity. Okay, it shows a positive relationship between the price and the quantity supplied. So just like demand schedule, even in supply schedule we have the individual supply schedule and the market supply schedule. If I have to present to you the individual supply schedule, it is nothing but the quantity that a seller is willing to sell at different prices. So here you can see in this particular table, these are the different prices and this is the quantity supplied by, let's say, supplier X. So as you can see, as the price is increasing from 1, it came up to 5. So here you can see the quantity supplied increased from 100 to 500. Okay. Now let's come to market supply schedule. See, market supply schedule is the quantities that are supplied by all the sellers who are willing to sell at different prices. So we'll have different firms. Let's say firm A, firm B. So the market supply would be sum total. If these are the only two firms in the market, so market supply is sum total of quantity supplied by these two particular firms, that is A and B. So if they are willing to supply, let's say 10 units by A, 5 units by B, then the market supply is 15 units. That's the market supply schedule. Okay. So remember, here I'm assuming that the market only consists of two firms, that is firm A and firm B. Now let us see how the individual supply curve and market supply curve look like. So this is how the individual supply curve looks like. This is nothing but the supply schedule which we saw in the previous slide, okay, of individual supply schedule. That is what has been depicted out here. So here you can see that it is a straight line. You can see this SS curve, it's a straight line. Okay, so it is a upward sloping individual supply curve that shows that as the price increases, the quantity supplied will also increase, and hence there is a positive relationship which is getting depicted through graphical representation of individual supply curve. Now let's understand the market supply curve. Okay, now market supply curve is a graphical representation between the price and the market supply of commodities by all the firms. Okay, now remember, even these are upward sloping curves. Okay, now market supply curve is a horizontal summation of all individual supply curves. So whatever individual supply curves are, it would be a horizontal summation of that. So here see, assuming we have this firm A and firm B, so that's the supply curve, how it looks like for both the firms. So this is your market supply curve. Okay, now remember, it is a upward sloping curve, and